Hi, this is Lauren. Welcome to Craft Some Joy. If you're new here, I just want to say welcome. I'm so glad you found my channel. And if you are a subscriber, again, a big thank you. I am so excited that we are celebrating 5,000 subscribers. I am so grateful to all of you who have helped me grow this wonderful sharing community, and I am so happy to be part of this community that is growing and getting excited about crafting and organizing and scrapbooking. So thank you. I'm really excited to have you all here as part of the community. Well, today we are going to continue my pop series with pop episode 5. Can you believe it? We're already up to episode 5. That's kind of fun. And as promised, today I want to talk about theme scrapbook albums. So my last episode, we dove into big moments in a little more detail, and I showed you how I had things set up in my pop planner for my big moments and how I had those organized. And I also showed you how to do a power layout, which was really exciting. That's a really useful tool. So today we are going to continue and talk in more detail about theme albums. And this can get a little tricky. It's simple, but then there's some theme albums that we're going to just kind of talk a little bit more in detail about. And then my next episode is going to be Library of Memories. So hang on tight for that one. It's coming. First of all, let's go back to theme. If you might have noticed, I've added some color to my planner here. Last week, we got to add some color to our project trackers. And this week, we are going to come back around because I want to share just a little more information on photo organization tips. I've had the opportunity to have some wonderful conversations in between the last episode and this episode. And so I just first want to take a little time to revisit again how we get where we're going, because this is just steps in the process. I should also say I am working this process right along with you. And I know I get a lot of questions. I'm going to answer those questions as best I can, but I know that there's a lot of you out there that are experts or that have some wonderful information to share as well. So I encourage you to join my pop community. It is a Facebook group, and you can find it on my page, which is Craft Some Joy with Lauren Hines. And then you just ask to be a member of the pop community, the Progress on Projects community. And ask your questions to the community there. I'm going to pop in as I can and answer questions, but it is for you. That community is for you. So I'm really excited to have a place where everyone can share their best ideas as well. Okay, so getting back into photo organization tips. So this, as I mentioned the first time I shared this sheet, this has some crossover into digital. But let's just say we're looking first of all at printed photos. Okay, so again, if you remember, there's 3 things I want you to consider when you look at a photo. And first of all, I want you to take a look at a photo and just go, is this a good photo? Do I even like it? Is it blurry? Is it a great photo? Is it album worthy? Does it tell a story? Or was it just a photo that got taken because you felt a little obligated to take the photo? Or you were trying your best just to catch every single person that was at a birthday party. And maybe those people are not that relevant. Maybe they are, but maybe they're not. And you have a picture of them. So first of all, is that photo something that you want to put in your album? Is it album worthy, or does that photo tell a story? If it doesn't, if the answer to that question is no, guess what you get to do? You get to put it in the toss pile, or you get to delete it. And I'll give you an example. I was going through some soccer photos recently, and I was one of those moms that took photos of every kid on the soccer team. I decided that all those photos, if I felt up to it, I was going to pull them off the computer and put them into Shutterfly, and then I can send out emails and tell everybody that those photos are there, that were part of the soccer teams or so on. Then all those photos except for my child are getting deleted. Every single one of them. I don't need them. They are not album worthy. They're not something I'm going to print and put in any album that's going to go in my home. Even though there's some great shots of other kids, I don't want them on my computer anymore. So that's just one of the ways I take care of extra photos that I have that I know are not relevant for me. What I would encourage you to do is get a pod from your power sort box, or get a box, or get some kind of a container and put a big label on it that these are toss photos. These are photos that you don't need to have around anymore. And then make sure you have that someplace that's always handy. So that's your first decision point. Is it a bad photo? Because if it's a bad photo, it's going to get into the toss pile. Okay. The second decision point, I'm going to give you an example of that. And there, I was working with my friend Maria. You remember Maria from episode 2. And she had some great photos of other family members, not her family, but other family members at a birthday party. So for those photos that are great photos that have other people's family in it that you know and that you love, and that are not necessarily something that you want to add to your own photo library, I suggest that you make a little folder and put in here for friends and family. And then just tuck those photos into a folder, and you can just keep this handy when you're sorting through photos, and then make sure that you have a place to just tuck those in. And as you come across those photos, the whole goal is to take this big funnel of photos, all these photos that you have, stacks and stacks and stacks of photos that you have, and funnel them down and start making decisions for each one of those photos that you touch. And my challenge for you is that you only touch that photo one time. It's just like paperwork. It's just like getting your inbox cleared out. When you touch that piece of paper, you need to make a decision. Where's it going to go? And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bring up ABC photos again, and just reiterate that that is kind of your first point that you need to come to when you're working with your photos. And it's going to give you a lot of peace of mind when you can easily say those photos, yeah, I took them, but they're not photo worthy. And so they're going to go over here in the C file. Okay, so your toss, I made that color red because I thought, okay, red, stop. I don't want to use those colors. So that's your C photos. Archive are your B photos. So if you want to follow along and color code with me, I think that would be fun. You can add some color to your own planner. So these are the easy decisions: archive, toss. And then again, we come back to, is that photo album worthy, and does it tell a story? Is it a great photo? Yes. Now, you might be on the fence about some of these. Throw it into the A category. You can always put it into archive later. So decision making is important. I want you to just touch that photo once, but I don't want you to hem and haw over which category it should go in. Look at it, make a decision, and move on. Because either way, whether you put it in archive or you put it in album worthy, you can switch it. Everything's up to you. This is your game. So just think of it that way. So once you've decided, okay, I'm looking at these photos, these are my great photos. We talked about the 3 places they can go. So big moments, last episode, chronological big moments. We're going to just get those out of the way. So easy to do. Next is theme, and theme is also an easy-ish category. So if you remember, going into our theme album tab in your Pop Planner. Okay, These are some of the different types of theme albums that you can create, and everybody is going to have a different list. I gave you some suggestions. Feel free to write your own, but everybody is going to have their idea of what they want on their bookshelves. And if you remember, when I asked Maria what was one of the first things, what would be one of the first albums that you would want to see, I remember it was the kids. That was one of the first things that she wanted to see on her bookshelves, her family and the kids. So family would be Big Moments chronological, but the kids, to me, fall into a theme category. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about kids in this episode, so hang on for that. But other theme albums are super easy to identify because they are an event, or they have a beginning and an end, and that is it. Most of the time you can start here and you end here, and that's it. So a perfect example of that is a family vacation album. This was on a trip we took to Kauai in 2006. And so these are the photos that I put together of that vacation. And again, it had a start, it had a finish, and it was just easy to go ahead and put this whole album together just based on that trip. And again, making theme albums is entirely up to you and what your personal goals are. So if you take a look back at your project tracker and you take a look and go, okay, these are the people I want to make albums for, then you think about what types of albums are they going to be. On my project tracker, you can see all my green dot albums. Those are all going to be Big Moment scrapbooks. That's really easy to identify. And then all of these other color dots along here, as well as the yellow squares, all of my yellow squares, all of these are theme albums. And so they are going to have a start and a finish, and they're going to have a certain theme to it. Okay, so I hope that's making a lot of sense now that you're kind of getting to see these forms over again and adding another layer of understanding, because I know this is all information that has to kind of sink in over time. I totally get that. And I'm still letting it all sink in for myself as well. Okay, so theme albums are going to have kind of a start and a finish that you can see, or a limited subject matter. So it could be pets, it could be sports, it could be vacation, whatever works for you. Now, there is one type of theme album, which is one that I'm actually working on and continuing to work on and develop, that does have a little more depth to it. And for me, that is the kids albums. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can approach how you make albums for your children. And so I just want to take a little time now and kind of dig into how things can look when you start looking at the kids in your family and how to put those books together. Especially since I know that it's pretty easy to understand how to put a vacation book together, and it's easy to understand how to put a pets album together. Those are kind of the easy ones. So let's take a closer look at the kids' books. So if you remember, one of the all-important trackers that I have had you guys work on was the keeping track of tracker. And I just have to say something really fun is that I was having a conversation with my friend Jeanette that you've heard me talk about before. And she told me she used this form for her husband so she could keep track of her husband as well as her kids. So there you go. These have lots and lots of different uses for these forms. So I love the fact that she did that. She goes, oh yes, I've got several decades of my husband just all figured out on the form. So it was kind of fun to hear. But if you remember, what I did for my trackers is that I added in all the information about my kids so that I could follow along and see where they were different years. And that also gave me a picture to look at to see how I wanted to start grouping my albums together. So if you remember, kind of on my big timeline, I did have my kids all had their baby album and their first year started. And another thing that I have started for all of the kids are their school books. And each one has their own red album. And so when I switched from their kind of baby and childhood and toddler books to school, I did switch to red. Now, I would have you kind of consider that. That is a personal choice. Kind of looking back, I think it would be nice if all their books were the same color. So that's just a personal choice and something you can decide on, especially if you haven't made the decision on the color for your kids or where their school information is going to go. So first of all, this is my son Eric's school book. And so I just want to kind of show you a little bit about how I started this and then how I'm thinking I want to continue his theme album. So this is a theme album because it is a school book. All right, so this is first, we start off with his kindergarten page, and this is again where I feel a lot of photos get taken is in the beginning, in the first kindergarten, first and second grade. It seems like that's when you're in the classroom and they're going on field trips, and there's just a lot of interaction between kids. So kindergarten, first and second grade, I found I had most pictures, and then third, fourth, fifth, it kind of tapers off. And then, as I mentioned, even in middle school, it tapers off even more. So kind of there's that perspective piece again when I look at how many photos I have and kind of the history of photo taking for my kids. One of the things that I do as I'm sorting through pictures is I'm kind of picturing pages in my head as I'm pulling photographs and as I'm looking at them, and I'm going and saying which one of these photographs is the best. If I have a stack of 45 photos, which photos are the best? And I usually think of 4 to 6 per side of each 2-page spread. So in other words, that's 8 to 10 photos for a 2-page spread. Now, where that rule really gets thrown out is when I'm doing school books with a lot of memorabilia. So you can see here, I only have 2 photos because it was the end of the first day of school, and I wanted to add in some memorabilia. And again, these are pocket pages that you can add in to the Creative Memories albums. They fit into the albums just like a regular page, but they have pockets so that you can include wonderful things that your kids did. So again, there is nothing that I enjoy more than looking back and seeing this wonderful memory of what my son did when he was in kindergarten. I love it. So that to me is priceless. That needs its own page, and that needs to go in his school book. So I encourage you to kind of look through not only your photos, but your memorabilia to make something special for your kids. In Eric's kindergarten book, I have kind of gone through the entire year, and I've included pictures other than just school photos because I stopped his childhood album. So this is what he's going to take with him, hopefully someday. And I wanted to have that representation of him as he's growing up and not just in school. So like I included Christmas pictures and things like that, as well as school performances. So this leads me to one of those questions that I get quite often, which is, do you duplicate photos? And the answer is sometimes. And it's a tricky question, but the short answer is yes, I do duplicate photos because these photos I want Eric to have, but I'm also going to be putting some of these photos in my own album for my family. So the short answer is yes, but the longer answer is that sometimes your photos actually drive the pages that you make. And so there are times where you will have duplicates. You'll have to print more than one set of photos because you want a child to have that photo, but you go, that is a fantastic photo, and I want it in my own family book as well. So I wanted to make sure to answer that question, because I do know that it comes up quite a bit, is, you know, if you're doing all of these different types of projects, are you going to have duplication? Well, yes. Now, some of them I may just take the absolute best and put in my family albums. And for instance, this is what I wanted to show you. So these are really great baseball pictures of Eric, but he deserves this whole 2-page spread in his book. He deserves to have all of these fantastic photos. But in my family album, I may not pick all of these photos. I may pick 1 or 2 and put that in my family album. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so another question that gets asked is about sports and scouts and those different special activities that your kids may have been involved in for several years, or that you may see that you have a lot of photos for. And what I would say to that is again a personal choice, and you have to look at your projects and kind of where that fits into your schedule. Whether you have the time to create an entire album that's dedicated to them playing baseball, or whether you want to just take a few photos, make a 2-page spread, and include it in their school growing up years. So that is all going to be up to each and individual person, how you want to handle that type of a theme album. And one of the things that came up when I was kind of going through this with my friend Maria is that you can organize and sort your photos and always change your mind later. So if you have a whole pod of photos sorted for one child, and you think that that's all going to go in their all about them book, and then you realize you just have so many wonderful, wonderful photos of a certain theme, of a scout or a sport or something like that, you can always decide to pull those folders out and put them into a separate theme album. So there's flexibility. That's what I'm saying. There's flexibility built into the system, but first thing what you have to do is get all of your photos organized. So decide, touch them once, put them somewhere, but that doesn't mean that you're locked into that, okay? So don't feel that. So each one of us is going to have to decide what works best for us. I'm looking at a lot of pages that I need to make to get my kids caught up. And so the more I look at my photos, the more I decide that I need to just pick my absolute best photos. Really, really just the good ones, because my mission is just to get caught up and start powering through these pages once I have gone through this organization process, because my goal is just to get these pages done. And I would definitely go back and look at your keeping track of tracker, as well as your project and your timeline, just to kind of get a feel for what you have on your plate and what you really want to do, because this is going to help you decide where your priorities are. I've seen a lot of you comment in the group that it's so good to get it written down and out of your head and get it written down on paper. And I agree, because one of the best things that can come out of that is that you can decide what your priority is. And that can change. You can start on something and you may have a go at it, and then all of a sudden you realize there is a big priority that comes up. And I was just talking with my friend Jeanette about this, and she said, oh my gosh, we just found these amazing, amazing letters and photos of my sister, and she's having a special birthday. And so now, boom, now that's a priority for her. Okay, and that's what happens, especially when you want to give this absolutely amazing gift of an album for someone, is that you have your own goals, but then things can come in and your goals may shift for a little while, and then you can just get back into where you were in the process and keep reevaluating. So get it all down on paper so that you have a good look at it, and then you can make your decisions based on what you have written down. Okay, so that was just a little bit about kind of school-focused albums. And I know I've shown you Audrey's school book. Again, my goal is to get kindergarten, first and second into one volume, and then third, fourth, and fifth into another volume. And then after that, I am going to start their all about books. And so that's what I want to take a little bit of time and talk about next. So if you remember, one of the things I have done is I've taken the Creative Memories Power Sort box and created a box for each of those different types of albums and categories that I want to make albums for. So these are my theme albums. And so in this box, I actually have each one of these pods is a different album. In my Big Moments box, I might have several pods that are going to fit into one album. So each of these boxes are going to be set up a little differently, just according to how you're going to be working on your projects. But in this theme album box, some of my most important theme albums that I want to get working on and I'm excited about doing are my all about books for the kids. And this is, again, a little bit of that photo freedom, Stacy Julian idea of really taking a look at the kids kind of across time and looking at each of your children and saying what's unique to them, what are some special gifts they have, and what do I want to celebrate about their life. So that's what those all about books are for. And if you remember in your pop planner, I also gave you a form that you can use for an all about book. And so that can be found all the way in my book. I put it behind my theme albums tab. And then behind that, I have a special tab just for my kids. And that is also where I keep my keeping track of tracker. So you see I have that all filled out. And then behind my keeping track of tracker is where I have my album project sheet. And so this is where I'm going to take notes about the album that I want to make for Audrey. This is her all about Audrey album. And so I created a keyword for Audrey's book, which is all about Audrey, for when I'm looking at digital photos. And then I started brainstorming a list of title pages and categories that I just thought of off the top of my head. Now, I know as I'm looking through photos, some other themes and categories are going to emerge, and I will probably add those in. But for now, these are just kind of some of the big categories that came to mind right away. But again, I always encourage you to take a look at your pictures because you will be surprised what kind of themes start to emerge with your kids and with your family and different things. And I think each of us has kind of our own style of how we take photos. And so for some of us, we might really love taking pictures of shoes. And for others, we might not even think about taking pictures of shoes. So it's all kind of a personal thing. But let's just talk a little bit more about the all about book. I really see these albums for me and my process as being theme albums for my kids, kind of following in line with their school book, as this is another album in their series of books. So it's a theme album. So what is that going to look like? For me, that was a kind of an interesting question to think about. And so I'm going to take Audrey's pod out of my theme album box and just talk a little bit more about her all about book. Okay, so Anybody who knows my daughter Audrey knows that one of the big parts of her life was playing soccer. And she played soccer since she was 5, and then in high school ended up with 2 concussions from playing soccer. And so we made a decision as a family that she was not going to continue playing soccer. But she had some wonderful, wonderful years over the years of her playing soccer. So here's again that piece of where do you put all of these photos together? So what happens when you start looking at All About Audrey is you start looking at all of these different photos, and these just happened to be photos that I had of Audrey from different years from playing soccer. So here's her blank All About Audrey album. And as I mentioned, her color's purple, so it's going in a purple album. So what I see happening in her book is using these title pages, and I'm using the Creative Memories 12 by 12 top loading pocket page as a title page. And this is going to designate the different sections in her album. The reason I decided to use the pocket page is so that when you're kind of flipping through the album, it's going to give a different feel to the sections as you're going through. And so I really liked the idea of kind of designating the sections with a different type of page. So behind the title page is kind of where I see Audrey's soccer experience coming to life. And so the fun thing that happens when you start looking at these photos across time is that you can start seeing, wow, the improvement, the growth, the different looks, the different kind of personality that comes across from when she was playing soccer. And so I start looking at not just one particular game or pictures of her at one particular game, but pictures of her as a player. And that to me was really exciting to start seeing in her All About books. And so you can start looking at these photos as a way of making a collage about a player rather than pictures that you took at a game. So I hope that makes sense. And that's what I see is going to be so fun when you're doing the All About book, is that even though this is a theme album, I want to take a look at this across time. And I started thinking, well, what would it look like if I even went back in time and started pulling some of those photos? And would that make this album even richer? And the answer was yes. And so when I went back, I do have some of these photos of Audrey. This was her very first soccer team that she played for. And I have some of these photos in her kindergarten school book. And there's a page, and there's a page about the team she was on. It was called Sea Ponies. But I also see the importance of pulling a couple of these photos out of when she was a kindergartner and when she started. And so I can start looking at the player Audrey across time. And I get to see over time how she grew and changed and became what I just might want to call fierce. This player right here is much different than this player. And it's really fantastic to see that on the same 2-page spread. So I just want you to think about that for a little bit. It might take you some time to kind of dig through these photos and to think about how this connection is going to be made for you and for your kids. But how wonderful to start seeing that beautiful picture of what your child was as a particular player, or as a particular musician, or as a particular dancer, or as a particular horse rider. Whatever it is, let's look at all of those pictures and see the growth. And then what a wonderful opportunity for you to tell a story about that, to tell a story about being at the games and sweating along with her. And what a wonderful experience it was for you to be a parent to that and to see her growth or his growth in that process. Okay, so that is what is exciting about the All About Me book and All About Your Kids book, is just that opportunity to start looking at a bigger picture of who they are. So you can see how this album is going to feel a lot different than the school album I just showed you earlier. They are both dealing with kids and they are both theme albums, but the way you approach theme albums is entirely your choice, and it can be different. It can be different across time. Their school books can be focused on who they were as a kid in school, but as they get older, I think it's really interesting and exciting to take a look at the people that they are becoming. And you have an opportunity to talk and share how you're feeling about them on your scrapbook pages. So to me, that's what it's all about, and that's what's so exciting. So I can't wait to get started on these pages. I think it's just going to be really exciting to look back over time and see the growth and progress of each of my kids. So it's going to be really fun to have all these different title pages. She's going to have soccer. She also played softball, so she's going to have a softball title page. She was involved in Scout, so I'm going to make that a title page. She even played basketball. She loves to do art. She loves to bake. She loves animals. And then, of course, I think an important title page is just about her personality. Just finding those special pictures that are just all her. And I took one just the other day, and when I saw her doing this, I knew that was going to go into her All About book, and it was going to be all about Audrey and all her personality, because this photo, and I'm going to show it to you up here on the screen, is 100% my girl. She loves to have her mind going in a million different directions. So she was baking, she had her headphones on, she was looking at the recipe on her computer, and she was watching something on her phone. She just wants it all. That is my girl, and I love her so much. So anyhow, again, when you start into this process, you also really appreciate capturing those moments that are going to help you tell the story of who they are. And so that's really, really important too. Now, one last little tidbit I want to share before we kind of wrap up today's episode is that I know some of you may be feeling a little bit of stress about taking things out of chronological order to kind of put them in these more general categories. So this is, all about Audrey, and this is Audrey soccer. So instead of keeping it in a date format, I'm going to take that out and put that into a folder that's just soccer. So if it makes you feel more comfortable, what I would encourage you to do is take your photo out before you put it in your general category, and then just write with a photo labeling pencil, which is a soft Stabilo pencil. Just write the date on the back. And so you have that at least captured on the back of your photo. And then once you file that away, then you don't have to worry about chronological. So if you ever wanted to kind of go back and figure out where a photo was from, you could just have that date written on the back. But I just want to remind you that the interesting thing that happens when you take photos out of chronological order and mix them up is that you get to rediscover your photos, and you get to rediscover the connections that all these pictures have about this one particular child or an event. And you just really get to understand your photos and your life and your story that much better. So you not only get to rediscover your photos in a new way, but you also get to tell a new story. So if I were looking at these photos in chronological order as a game, or even as a year of a team that she was on, I would have a much different story to tell than if I look at these photos across time. Okay, so as I look across time, I get to add in that gift of perspective and that gift of telling a new story. So that is really exciting when you look at all of these wonderful ways to create theme albums and take a look at the people that you're creating these for. So now I'm feeling much more comfortable to take my Audrey soccer folder and just erase the date and then add in all of these fabulous photos that are just Audrey soccer. And that is also something I encourage you to do. I know it takes a lot of time to make these little photo folders, but just use pencil, and then as you use them up, recycle them and reuse them. They are so sturdy and so easy to reuse. So just make sure you use your pencil, and then you can just keep reusing your little photo folders. Okay, so now I'm just going to tuck these away and let them kind of mingle, and I'm probably going to find some more great soccer pictures as I go through Audrey's photos. But for now, I know that these are contained in Audrey soccer photos, and those are going to go in her pod that is all about Audrey, and those are going to wait for her and when I'm ready to work on her all about book. And the more I do in this process, the more excited I get about making these album pages. And so I hope that is what is happening for all of you. I know this is an investment in time and energy and thought, and there is a lot of different layers to this whole process. But I have this feeling that as soon as we kind of get over that first organizational hurdle, our album making is just gonna fly, and that is super exciting to me. All of this stuff to do in the beginning is gonna be worth getting to that point. So I hope you're with me on that. And again, as usual, I would love to hear your comments. I appreciate when you write those comments on the YouTube channel so that when I answer those questions, other people can see those answers if they have the similar questions. And then also make sure you check out the pop community, because that is also a wonderful place to share and ask your questions and get answers there as well. So until next time, when we're ready to talk about Library of Memories, I hope you focus on just what your theme albums are going to be. Get a good handle on those, use the forms, write everything down, and then you're going to be able to just make some wonderful decisions, organize your photos, touch them once, and get them in the right box. So I'm really excited to hear how you're coming along in this process, just alongside with me. And next time we'll be talking about Library of Memories. So stay tuned and take care. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.